Story 1. Dead Stare. In the quiet, picturesque town of Pineville, nestled deep within Delaware, autumn arrived like an old friend, adorning the streets with a rich tapestry of crimson and gold. Children eagerly prepared their costumes, and neighbors spent their weekends decorating their homes for the approaching Halloween. The small community thrived on tradition, but little did they know that this particular Halloween would etch a horrifying tale into their collective memory. The Smiths, a seemingly typical suburban family, resided in a cozy house on Elk Street. As Halloween drew near, they, like many others in Pineville, embarked on the annual transformation of their home. Their front yard became a hauntingly delightful display, complete with cobweb-draped trees, jack-o'-lanterns grinning eerily on the porch, and an array of ghoulish decorations. But it was the centerpiece that would unwittingly weave a macabre narrative into Pineville's history. In the yard, standing tall and ominous, was a large, gnarled oak tree. Its branches reached out like skeletal fingers, casting long, sinister shadows in the fading light. Dangling from one of these sinister limbs was a life-sized effigy, swaying gently in the crisp evening breeze. It was an unnervingly realistic figure, dressed in tattered clothing, its face obscured by a pale, ghostly mask. The Smiths had put a great deal of effort into creating the lifelike decoration, down to the last haunting detail. However, as the sun dipped below the horizon on that fateful Halloween evening, the neighbors strolling by couldn't help but stop and marvel at the haunting display. It was so convincing that many assumed it was a professional prop or a particularly eerie addition to the Smiths' decorations. As darkness began to envelop Pineville, the streets came alive with trick-or-treaters and adults venturing out for Halloween festivities. The small town was enveloped in an air of excitement, and the once benevolent oak tree had transformed into a ghastly sentinel, silently swaying in the wind. It was near midnight when a passerby named Ethan stumbled upon the gruesome sight. He had been at a late-night Halloween party, and the streets were nearly deserted. The wind had picked up, causing the eerie effigy to sway more violently, casting ominous silhouettes upon the road. As Ethan approached, he couldn't help but feel a creeping unease. The wind had revealed more of the figure's face, and it appeared far more realistic than any prop should. The mask seemed to bear an uncanny resemblance to a human face, with vacant eyes that stared into the abyss. Fear prickled at the nape of Ethan's neck, and his pulse quickened. A cold sweat broke out across his forehead, and he finally mustered the courage to dial 911. As the dispatcher received the call, the chilling details sent a shiver down her spine. She dispatched a patrol car to investigate immediately. By the time the officers arrived, a small crowd had gathered, their hushed voices filled with trepidation. The officers' flashlights illuminated the grisly spectacle, revealing that the effigy was not what it seemed. The woman hanging from the tree was real. Lifeless, her body swayed with each gust of wind. Panic rippled through the crowd as they realized the terrible truth. The authorities quickly cordoned off the area, and the horrified neighbors watched in disbelief. As the investigation unfolded, it was discovered that the woman was Lacey Turner, a Pineville resident. The shocking question loomed: how had this horrifying mistake been made? Why had no one called the police for hours? It appeared that the townsfolk had been so entranced by the Smiths' realistic Halloween decoration that they had assumed Lacey's tragic fate was merely part of the spooky tableau. The incident sent shockwaves through Pineville, leaving the community grappling with a profound sense of guilt, sorrow, and disbelief. The town's Halloween tradition would never be the same, forever haunted by the night they mistook a real tragedy for a spine-chilling decoration. Story 2. The Collection. In the quaint town of Willowville, nestled deep in the heart of rural Pennsylvania, Halloween had always been a time of enchantment and laughter. children roamed the streets, dressed as their favorite heroes, princesses, and monsters, their eyes wide with anticipation of the treats that awaited them. But beneath the cheerful facade lurked a shadow that would forever taint the innocence of this charming community. It was a chilly Halloween evening in 1974 when the O'Connell family prepared for their annual trick-or-treating tradition. 8-year-old Daniel O'Connell was bubbling with excitement, his eyes sparkling with the prospect of sweet confections. His parents, Allison and James, watched their son with adoration, eager to share in the joy of the season. Little did they know that this Halloween would soon plunge them into every parent's worst nightmare. As darkness descended upon Willowville, families gathered along Brookside Avenue, where the houses were adorned with ghoulish decorations and glowing jack-o'-lanterns. Laughter filled the crisp night air as children scurried from one house to the next, their bags brimming with candy. It was a picture of idyllic suburban life. But beneath this seemingly tranquil setting, malevolence festered. As the evening unfolded, Daniel returned home with his bag of treats, excitement radiating from his cherubic face. He excitedly dumped the contents onto the living room floor, revealing a trove of sweets and chocolates. Among the colorful wrappers lay a small, unassuming piece of candy. Allison, Daniel's mother, picked it up and examined it curiously. Something about it seemed off, as if it didn't belong amidst the familiar candies. Her maternal instincts went on high alert. She sensed a sinister presence lurking within that innocent-looking treat. Upon closer inspection, her heart plummeted. This was no ordinary candy. It had been spiked with a lethal poison, enough to send chills down even the bravest of souls. Panic clawed at her chest as she realized the potential danger her son had unknowingly faced. Allison immediately rushed to the phone, calling the Willowville police. As they arrived, they confirmed the grim reality. The candy had indeed been tainted with a deadly toxin intended to harm her innocent child. The revelation sent shockwaves through the community, shattering the illusion of safety they had held dear for so long. The investigation that followed uncovered a nightmare beyond imagination. Allison's husband, James, the boy's own father, stood accused of the heinous act. His motives were as horrifying as the crime itself. He had sought to cash in on his son's life insurance, using the darkest of means to achieve his sinister goals. The revelation that a father could commit such a malevolent act against his own flesh and blood left Willowville in a state of disbelief and anguish. The townsfolk were haunted by the knowledge that evil could be so close, hidden behind a facade of normalcy. As the trial unfolded, the weight of James O'Connell's guilt became undeniable. He offered no remorse for his actions, his eyes vacant of any humanity. The horror of the crime had forever scarred the Willowville community, a town that had once prided itself on its tight-knit bonds and neighborly trust. Years passed, but the trauma of that Halloween never truly faded. Willowville became a place where parents clung to their children a little tighter, where the night of trick-or-treating held an edge of trepidation that would forever be etched in their collective memory. Story 3. Killer Candy. On a chilly Halloween night, 4 friends, Sarah, Mark, Emily, and Mike, set out on their annual quest for candy, laughter, and the thrill of eerie encounters. Their neighborhood was known for its extravagant decorations, but this year, a new house at the end of the street caught their attention. It stood in the shadows, casting a sinister aura that drew them closer, despite their initial reluctance. The house was old, its paint peeling, and its windows were shattered. The garden was overgrown with weeds, and an eerie mist seemed to linger around it. Unbeknownst to the group, the legend of this place was whispered throughout the town, and its dark history was a chilling secret hidden from the world. As they approached, they noticed an elderly man sitting on the porch, his eyes hidden behind thick glasses. He was dressed in tattered clothing and appeared fragile, an unsettling contrast to the malevolent energy the house exuded. Sarah, the bravest of the group, took the lead. "Trick or treat," she called out, holding her plastic pumpkin bucket forward, her voice quivering slightly. The old man didn't respond for a moment, and the friends exchanged nervous glances. Finally, he cracked a crooked smile, revealing a few yellowed teeth. "Well now, trick or treat it is. Please, come inside." As the friends hesitated, their curiosity got the better of them, and they followed the old man into the dimly lit house. The foyer was filled with dusty old paintings and eerie, ancient artifacts. The atmosphere was suffocating, as though the house itself was holding its breath. They descended a creaking staircase into a pitch-black basement. In the dim light of a flickering candle, they saw children huddled in the corners, some crying, others eerily silent. Their eyes were hollow, and their faces were pale with fear. The old man had locked them in, their tiny faces streaked with tears. Sarah gasped, her heart racing. "What's going on here? Who are these kids?" The old man chuckled, a sinister sound that sent shivers down their spines. "I collect children, you see. They make the best Halloween decorations." Emily's voice trembled as she stammered, "You're insane! We have to get these kids out of here." Just as they turned to leave, the basement door slammed shut, and the old man's face contorted into an evil grin. He held a rusty knife in his trembling hand. "You thought you could just waltz in and ruin my fun, did you?" he hissed, his voice dripping with madness. The friends' screams echoed through the basement as they desperately tried to escape, but the old man was relentless, his strength surprising for someone of his age. They fought back, pushing, kicking, and clawing, their determination fueled by terror. Mark managed to grab a heavy candlestick from a nearby shelf, and with all his might, he struck the old man across the head. He crumpled to the floor, blood oozing from a gash on his forehead. Emily, sobbing, searched for the basement key on his person, and after a frantic moment, she found it. They rushed to unlock the basement door, freeing the terrified children. The relief on their faces was heartwarming, but their ordeal was far from over. The old man was unconscious, but they feared he would awaken at any moment. With the children in tow, they fled from the accursed house, making their way to a neighbor's house and phoning the police. They described the horrifying scene they had uncovered and awaited the authorities. The police arrived swiftly, arresting the deranged old man and providing medical care to the rescued children. The neighborhood was forever changed by that fateful Halloween night, as the legend of the house transformed from eerie curiosity to a terrifying reality. As they stood on the sidewalk, watching the flashing lights of the police cars, they realized that true horror wasn't always confined to ghost stories and urban legends. It could lurk in the darkest corners of reality, waiting to be uncovered by the unsuspecting, even on a night meant for candy and laughter. Halloween, they learned, could be far more chilling than they had ever imagined.